Okay. Cool. Now we will do some simple exercise on SQL. What I want you all to do is open your MySQL Workbench. So how do you open it? Just press your Start or Windows button. Type MySQL. You will see this MySQL Workbench. Open it, click on it, and open. If you look at this, there is something called MySQL connections and there's local instance. So what does local instance mean? Local instance means that your computer, your RAM, is going to act like a MySQL server. Okay, that is why it is local instance. Suppose you want to connect to a different server and you have the connections credentials. Let's say you want to connect to, if you're working with Microsoft and Microsoft has a SQL database, obviously you will need some form of credentials to access it, right? So you can actually, create a connection to that database if you have the right authorizations. But for us, now if you create that connection, what will happen is the server on the Microsoft end will act as a MySQL server, right? And your computer is just like a portal to access that server. But here local instance means your RAM itself is the MySQL server, right? Okay. Now just click on it. And also, if you want to get more information on MySQL, you can actually click on browse documentation, read the blog and all that, right? Let's click on local instance. When you click on local instance, something like this should open. Don't worry about the schemas that you see on the left hand side, but tell me if you see something like this. Okay, now this, what you see on the screen is called a SQL Editor. Okay, this is where you'll write your code. On the left hand side, there's something called Navigator, or just click on schemas if you don't see that. Click on schemas here and you will see a list of schemas that you have access to. Okay, in the schemas, you should see something called as the Sql database. Schema is nothing but database, guys. It's another name, that's all. Do you see Sql? Yes. So Sql is a database or a schema that we are going to use to run our SQL queries. Okay. What all schemas do you see? You should see Sql, world, or something like that. What all schemas do you guys see? Yeah, sys, Sql, and world. Okay, great. Don't worry about Northwind, test underscore DB, test underscore Northwind. These are something created by me. We'll also create it over the course of the next 3 sessions. So this is the SQL editor. This is where you will see your schemas. You can, play around with these. The top right corner, if you click on this, you'll only see schema, right? You can just play around with all. Now, what we'll do is, okay, now, as I said, schema is another name for database, okay? You see that you have 3 databases, right? Sql, sys, and world. And each database, if you click on it, you will see there is table, view, stored procedure, function, and all that, right? And if you click on tables, you will see that Sql itself has a lot of tables. Now, since there are more than one schema in your MySQL, you have to initialize the schema that you're going to use, right? You want to tell SQL that, hey, I'm just going to work on Sakila, right? So for that, you use this command called use Sakila. I'm just putting it in the chat window as well. Use Sakila. Once you write this, just select this. There is a flash icon on top of your screen. Just execute this. I'll come to case sensitivity. I'll come there. Once you execute this, there's an output window on the bottom, right? Where you will see that there's a green tick and it says action was used Sakila, 0 rows affected because you just initialized the database, and it is a successful operation because there's a green tick. Whenever you see a cross mark, that means there is some error in the code. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to look at all the tables in this Sakila. So I will run. Now, when I ran the show tables, there was another window which popped up, which is called the result grid. This is where you will see, your output of the query. Okay, if there is any. Now here, what has happened? It has given me a list of tables. I can scroll down and see that, okay, there are different tables. Okay. The first table that we are going to look at is something called as the actor table, right? These are the tables in Sakila, and there is this table called actor. Now I want to know what this table contains. So there is a select statement. There is star. What does star mean? Star means give me all the fields or all columns. Whenever you see star, that means I want all the columns of the table, right? Now let's try to execute this. So you see this, select star from actor gives me all the columns and all the records of the actor table. And if you look at the output window, it's a successful operation. It says 200 rows returned. That means this table has 200 records and it has 4 columns, which you see here, which is actor ID, first name, and last update. Okay. Now, if you want just, the first name and last name from this table, I can actually specify the column name here. Like I can specify the column name, first name, comma, last name from actor and run it. If I run it, you will see that this query has returned just first name and last name and not all the columns. Okay. Okay. Now this limit operation, now you see that every time I execute this query, right, 200 rows are being returned. That means if I scroll down, there'll be like 200 records. But if I just want, let's say the first 10 or first 20, I will use something called as the limit. Okay, select star from actor, limit 10. It can be 20 or 30, whatever you choose. If I do this and you look at the action window, it says that only 10 rows are returned. Right? Now, why did I do it? Because more often than not, the select star statements are very time consuming. Okay, because we are just dealing with 4 columns. Usually tables will have more than 100 columns or more than 50 columns, and obviously more than 1 lakh records. So if you do a select star from a table, the query will take a long time. And if you just want to explore, just understand a little bit about data, it is always advisable to use a limit operator. To see, okay, I just want to look at the data. I just want 10 records. I'll see what it is. Right? That's why there's a limit operator. Okay. Cool. There are some other queries which you can, do, because I just looked at the actor table. There is some other tables also which you can explore. Just for your practice, just select different columns and all that. What if SQL is case sensitive? It is not case sensitive, because if you look at this statement where I've written everything in small letters and I run it, it will still run and not throw an error, which means SQL is not case sensitive. Now, good programmers, right? Even though it is case insensitive, they will sort of differentiate a command with, something like a column name or something. So this is just by practice. I actually tend to write all the commands in capital letters and the rest of it in small letters. Now suppose if you are not initialize the data, right? For example, you have not used this command called use Sql, and you want to access the table in the Sql database, you can do it using this command, select star from database name dot table name. Okay. It will also give you the same thing. If you have not used use Sql, you can access it using database name dot table name. Okay. This I finished this. SQL is not case sensitive. Now this brings us to